So how has the market for airless dispensers developed lately?
Well, the airless market is developing, is the strongest developing category in skincare and makeup. Because there are very strong drivers in favor of the airless. First of all, the regulations are more and more stringent, and also different from country to country. In order not to be in trouble with the regulations, the best way we found was to use an airless system. So that's one of the drivers. The other driver is that the more the cosmetic formula are developing and getting more and more complex, they also become more and more fragile, and they also come with a range of viscosity. And dispensing a formula with some significant viscosity is not so easy. For example, an atmospheric dispenser at some point always get in trouble because you cannot get all the product out of a content. So the consumer always feels that there is some product left in the container that she cannot use, and that's very frustrating. Although the brands have to compensate for that, because when they claim that the product is, for example, a 50 ml, they have to prove that they can dispense a 50 ml. So in order to account for the product that sticks to the walls and the internal structure, they have to put, say, 60 ml inside to dispense 50 ml. But even though they are legally covered, the consumer is still frustrated, because when she comes to the end of her package, she sees that some is left and that she cannot recoup it, and that's very frustrating. Actually, when you look at the corresponding development of atmospheric dispensers versus airless, atmospheric dispenser is diminishing, whether airless is growing at least twice and maybe more than twice the speed of the market. This proves that airless is cannibalizing what used to be the atmospheric dispensers.
And what's the situation in the prestige market at the moment concerning airless dispensers?
Well, that's an interesting question, because there is it's a kind of a paradoxical situation. You would expect the luxury brands to be more eager to use airless packaging than any other brand for two reasons: because they have the most elaborate formulas, the most delicate, the most precious formulas. So you would expect them to use also the most elaborate packaging, providing the best protection for their formulas. And they also can afford the little extra cost of an airless packaging, which is of course a technically complex package. And actually the result is the contrary. When you look at the distribution of the airless within the various market segments, luxury accounts only for 9% of the volume of airless. So we found that to be a kind of a paradox, and we wanted to understand why the luxury brands were not using as much airless as we could expect. And the result, when we asked them, was that of course, a luxury brand is extremely keen on its own brand image. And today, most available airless are just cylindrical standards, and that is completely acceptable maybe for a mass market or a masstige brand, but for a luxury brand who takes extreme care to have a Korean brand image, they don't want to have a package that stands out and that doesn't match the brand image. So that's one of the reasons why they were not so keen to use airless. The other situation is that when a mass market brand produces 50 million airless a year, they can have specialized lines, and they can have very automated lines. A more prestige brand typically has lower volumes, and it's more difficult for them to have dedicated lines and so forth. So most airless today are relatively complex to handle and to fill. So that was also the second drawback from the current airless offering that we got from the luxury brands. So basically, our aim when we embarked to develop Pure Drop was to solve both those limitations by offering the most customizable airless in the market, with, of course, top-notch technical capabilities, because that's now something that you cannot escape. It is not any longer acceptable to have a mediocre performance airless, especially for a luxury brand. And the third point, it had to be extremely simple to handle in terms of logistics and filling. And that's what's behind Pure Drop.
Could you please go a bit more into detail about what Pure Drop actually is?
So Pure Drop is actually a program where it's like a combination of blocks that allows a brand to really choose the platform or the technical part that fits her needs, with a body that is completely customized to their own need. So it's basically a three-layer product, like Russian dolls. At the heart lies the pump, because of course the pump is the heart, and it's the very important part of an airless system. A good airless is first and foremost a good pump, and I will come to that in a minute. Then we built around this pump what we call the platform, and the platform is a set of technical components that are unique to Pure Drop. It's not an existing standard. We developed something specific to Pure Drop to be both extremely performant in terms of air tightness, in terms of restitution ratio, and all the expectations that are now common to airless. At the same time, as it is totally customizable for the outside body. And so that's the second Russian doll. And the third Russian doll is the body, the outside, the dress of the airless. And here the Porsche Group is of course in a unique situation to provide the maximum flexibility for dressing components, because we can offer glass, plastic, metal, all sorts of decorations, the widest range of decoration in the market, and with our capabilities and our legitimacy in those areas, we can provide, of course, an airless that would be absolutely matching even the most demanding luxurious brand.
Can you please show some of the shapes that you could possibly realize?
Yes, well, I have here a few examples, and of course they are only examples, but this would be something extremely basic, where you have a cap and a system that is, you would say, a classical system. Here you can see a little bit the architecture, because inside you see the white bottle inside is what we call the platform. The platform goes up to here, and then the cap and the bottle are here, are in this case the dressing component. And here we showed that we could have something that is not just a stupid cylinder, but here we have some elaborate shape with high thickness, transparency, a gradient lacquer, and those kinds of things. Still, this remains a rather classical configuration. With exactly the same technical components, we can do other configurations, like this one, for example, which is an integral body, extremely elegant, with exactly the same internal components. Of course, we have different formats in terms of volume and size, etc., but it's the same, exactly the same components. And in this case, for example, we have an example of a glass bottle with a pouch inside, because our system can work with both a piston system and a pouch system, using exactly the same technical component, the same pump, the same air tightness system, so that it provides maximum flexibility for shapes like this one, which is triangular. And of course, if you would put a piston in here, you would lose a lot of space, so the pouch is really appropriate for this format. We can even have some rather original formats like this one, which is, you would think it's a kind of original airless shape. This one has a system where you can lock the actuator or unlock it to dispense. And in this case, you even have the indication of the volume. And another quite original architecture that our system allows is a refillable airless. which we think is a quite interesting idea because especially with the trend of sustainability, people are, especially when you buy a very expensive product from a luxurious brand, it's typically the body that is very elaborate, and you kind of hesitate to throw that away when you finish the product. And in our case, because of our particular architecture which separates the technical components from the body, we can very easily make a cartridge, an airless cartridge that you could exchange from a body that you would keep, for example, for several uses, or when you know that there is a big trend for cures. Cures are a system where you buy a kind of a kit that you are going to use for, say, a month and a half, with 6 bottles that you are going to use first week, second week, third week, etc., with ingredients that are varying, and you could have one content and several cartridges that you could exchange and use along the treatment, the time of the treatment.